Welcome to the CMO Chapter podcast, where we dive deep into the dynamic world of Chief Marketing Officers. Join us as we explore the careers, insights, and strategies of top marketing executives who shape the brands we know and love. Whether you're a seasoned marketer, aspiring CMO, or simply just curious to understand what it really takes to step into the shoes of a CMO. This podcast is your backstage pass to discovering what it's like to really lead and innovate in the ever-evolving landscape of business. Stay tuned as we uncover the stories of the visionaries behind the brand. Welcome, Dan.
Hello, thanks for having me on. It's awesome to be on.
Excellent. Dan, we caught up a while ago and we had a really good chat, and I thought you would be a fantastic guest to come on the show today. You've clearly had so much experience. I think I looked, it was like over 20 years experience as a CMO, and obviously more recently at Adore Beauty. Dan, please, before we get into it, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dan. I started in eCommerce and ended up in marketing, and most recently at Adore Beauty as their CMO. And now in a bit of a refractory period before I start on my next challenge. And I am really excited to be here on this podcast, reflecting and also getting a chance to talk, because I love to talk. My challenge today, Lucy, is going to be trying to say stuff with meaning in less words. So, if you can keep me honest to that, it would be fantastic.
Not a problem. I'm pretty good at that. I'm quite well practiced now, so we're all good. So, Dan, I guess I want to just sort of fire in. So I was having a look. So you're from Sydney originally. I saw that you actually did your degree in psychology. So why marketing?
Well, I've had a couple of these in my life. There was a kind of a sliding doors moment. I was leaving. I just finished my honours year. And I think I had an interview lined up in a hospital to do kind of specialty work to go into the necessary requirements to be a psychologist, which is a lot of practical work, and then sort of a little bit more university as well. And then at the same time, the thing I'd done for my honours year was a study on advertising and how people form instant feelings about things, and how those feelings can change by, just looking at sort of a Pavlov association. It was kind of natural, right? That instinctually meant that I maybe applied for just one or two jobs in advertising, and they were for account executive roles, which, if anyone who's been in advertising will know, is the very, very bottom of the rung in advertising. But my mum was like, account executive. Oh, my boy's going straight to the top, which was lovely. Bless my mum. I went for an interview on both. So I went to kind of the interview in the clinical setting, and I went to the interview at a company called Euro RSCG in Sydney with a very charismatic CEO. And it was it was a complete sliding doors moment. My instinct was I could probably have many years of helping people, truly helping people, but not knowing that often that clearly knowing that I made a difference.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of that fence was probably helping people less kind of socially, helping people career-wise, helping people very personally, helping them, but probably less helping, but definitely knowing that I'd made an impact. And for me, I guess that's been a recurring thing in my career. I want to know that I made an impact, and so I've been drawn to things where I can make an impact and where I can measure and see that impact, and that usually just kind of accelerates what I do as well.
And I can imagine as well, having a degree in psychology, I look back and my degree, my goodness, was in textile design or something like completely different to what I'm doing now. But, it's, you look back, I remember doing a module on like consumer buying behavior, and I found that really interesting. And I think tapping into how people think and, I guess aligns to a degree, in terms of where you are now, understanding how people are going to perceive brands and, understanding the interaction with those brands as well.
People throughout my career it always amazes me, especially when I was at Adore, people would go, beauty, wow,
Yeah.
you're a guy, you don't have any hair, like what drew you to beauty? And for me, I'm agnostic on the thing, it's the mental challenge, the challenge of configuring something that you think is great, that you think has value, and then how can you communicate that to people who want to get engaged with it? I think that's universal. It doesn't matter where you go, and I think that people need to kind of disengage themselves, or disattach, unattach. Anyway, they have to. I mean, because where we're going is less and less,
Yeah.
subject matter expertise weighted. AI is going to take care of a lot of that. I did a psych degree. I ended up in marketing and e-commerce. That's only going to get more extreme, I think. And it's something that we all need to ponder, right? Like, what is it that we're really good at? It's not, how to get open rate on an email. If you're an email marketer out there, it's that you understand what drives people, and what in that moment when they open their email or they open their email client, what in that moment, what is going to help you win over the other brands that are saying, pick me, pick me.
Yeah.
So, I think it's worth kind of reflecting it, if you're watching this, reflecting on what is it that you're really good at, because if you think you're good at the thing, the email marketing or whatever, then, that is a skill that decays over time. And that is a skill that loses its currency over time because, there's more knowledge. There's always more knowledge. There's always more detail. But what are you actually good at? And then use that to sort of grow your career.
Yeah. Thank you. And you mentioned AI, so I might as well just jump into it because it's going to be absolutely something that we're going to talk about. But yeah, look, I agree. I think having that one thing that you're good at and really sort of harnessing on that. But I think nowadays my viewpoint on it is I think when we talk about AI a bit more specifically, is knowing and being a lot more comfortable with the tech that's going to be coming along specifically that's going to impact that particular area of expertise that you have. So really being quite familiar with those AI tools. I know when we spoke about this and we caught up, can you give me your thoughts and insights on, how you see the impact of AI and how you see it impacting specifically marketing and perhaps even, people's roles?
Yeah, look, I mean, I sometimes wonder, back in 1928 or whenever it was that the TV was invented, it took a year for for the first TV station to start. And there was this year period in between, when you had the technology, but you couldn't even use it really. I think every new invention, every new change that sort of impacts our society, there's people who at the start of it are so aware of how different it is and how massive it's going to be. And it feels like, oh my God, buckle up, it's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, it probably takes a lot longer than you think. So, and by a lot longer, it could be years or it could be decades. Either way, though, my insight into AI so far has been that we, as marketers, largely are stuck or only in the first sort of pre-wave of AI application, where it's being used to save money, increase output for the same resource, to take shortcuts, existing platforms that a lot of people, a lot of teams are already using, email clients or customer marketing or attribution. They're adding AI to them, but often it's not Gen AI. Often it's algorithmic, and so it's not really the experience you get as a consumer. If I go to ChatGPT, or in fact, my daughter goes to ChatGPT, has a bad dream, and will spend an hour discussing that bad dream with ChatGPT,
Yeah. Wow.
and walk away feeling better about herself. Walk away, and I've seen they've done double blind, trials looking at therapy, or ChatGPT assisted therapy, or ChatGPT, and early indications is that there is. There's going to be, if it's not now, it's going to be in the near future. There's parity there, at least, if not a more consistent, higher standard. So if you acknowledge that, and that's the experience we're getting as consumers, we're often not getting it, in the retail and the everyday interfaces we use. It hasn't arrived there yet. Hey Siri, can you tell me what I should wear this Friday? Because I'm going to a party and I really want to use the color of Brat Summer. Siri
Yeah.
would not know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Siri. In fact, Siri the other day said, "Oh, do you want me to get ChatGPT to help me?" And I'm like, "Can't bring your smart friend in on this, okay?" Like a lot of our experiences are not yet truly AI enabled, even though it says that on the wrapper. My experience working with Prezi, is where they've generated where they've built an AI shopping assistant, agentic AI in general is transformative. At the moment, the sites that are using that Prezi tool, customers go on, they can say, "Hey, this thing is out of stock. Find me something else that's more like it."
Yeah. Right.
And they can, the shopping system will find that. You don't need to go, I'm looking for this particular style of dress. You can go, I'm going to a party. And it's going to be full of my coolest friends, and I'm 43. Can you suggest some dresses? What do you think I'd like based on all the things I've done before? It's just a different way of searching.
Yeah.
Like if I think about now, if I go, oh, I want to buy a microwave, I'll go on to Choice Magazine. I'll go on to Google, all the microwaves. I'll look at the different brands. I'll really enjoy it, by the way. So it's not that bad. And look at the technologies and learn about the technologies and then go, oh, great. Okay, well, I definitely should get this $225 microwave.
Yeah.
This is the smart choice. Whereas that whole collection and information gathering will be significantly aggregated, saving us time, throwing a lot of cards in the air around the current ecosystem. I'm sure that major platforms are not interested in losing money here. So how is that going to work out? I'd say it's going to be delightful to watch, but at the same time, it will affect all our lives on how it rolls out.
I agree.
And more than anything else, there is an unpredictable period ahead of us, I think, as I think particularly about my kids, but even as a marketer right now in the industry, I think looking at all the periods in my life and my career so far where new technology has arrived, you definitely have to be across it.
Yeah.
And you can't be across it like, I've gone to a conference about it. I think it's worth actually using it. I've only got sort of more insights as I've worked with Prezi and understood how to sell it, how to enunciate what it does, and then also how the technology, what is going on in the background. So I think that's important. If someone's listening to the podcast, like get into it hands on, go beyond just using ChatGPT. And if you're using ChatGPT, really use ChatGPT. The evolution of that over the last year has been, really significant. Well, it's a different beast to what it was a year ago. I think the other thing too is how that works with sort of the flattening of resource availability. Working from home was fantastic. It remains fantastic. It's great for us here in Australia. I think most workplaces offer a hybrid working situation. It also means that most companies now are much more used to engaging employees and resources, no matter where their location, and no matter how they are. They might be hybrid working. They might also be hybrid in terms of them and their assistance from AI. And that doesn't really matter because we're focused on what the outcome is and if you're getting the job done and if you're competitively adding value. And that will only accelerate, really. I mean, I think there's a few interesting things there. I could go on about it for a long time. I don't want to because I'm very conscious I've talked a lot. And that is against what I just said, probably 7 minutes ago.
Well, it was a question I had to ask, and I knew it would also get a big answer because it's worthy of a big answer. I think, a question I'm asked a lot right now is, are you seeing AI on JD? Are you seeing, what skill? And right now I'm not. But I do say to anyone, if you're interviewing, you've got to be talking about AI because if you don't, the person that is going to probably get the job over you. You have to at least be touching on it, and talking about, how you would see the impact of the business or the role or what tools you would utilize. I want to sort of go back a little bit. So I was having a look, you've been at sort of like CMO, quite a senior level for about, I think I'm going to say like over 20 years now in various different companies. Did you always have that, I guess, drive to sort of become at a senior level, at CMO level? Were you always quite ambitious?
Look, I think I always wanted to have impact, and I kind of value myself based on competing. And competing can sound selfish and it can sound not productive from a cultural point of view, but for me, it's benchmarking, and usually it's competing hopefully not with peers or even with within company, but still benchmarking myself against the best and trying to do better. I think that's productive for me because of the way my mind works. I need to have emotion and passion and care about what I'm doing, and the fastest way for me to do that is to care about the battle.
Yeah.
And the brutal truth that, if you're losing market share, or if growth is slowing, there might be other explanations, but you have to face the fact that maybe that means that you're not doing something right, or you're not doing a bunch of things right, or someone else could put them together better. And how are you going to factor for that?
Yeah. Okay. I want to touch on, I guess, moving forwards, the most recent role. So, I mean, I came across you absolutely when you took the role as CMO at Adore Beauty, a brand that I, for one, was well, still am a huge shopper. So you were there. I think we said it was just over about 7 years, wasn't it? So nearly coming up to 8 years. So, I mean, what a massive sort of huge chapter of your life. I want to touch on that because I just think it's really important to highlight because you were really part and your team of a huge sort of growth scale up phase. Did you ever really think it was going to become as big as what it now is today? I mean, compared to where you would have been from day one to when you recently left, I mean, my goodness, it would feel like a different company.
Yeah, I think the first part is you have to, out of all the businesses I've worked at, all the great founders I've worked with have this, I think we talked about it, this sort of bifocal
Mm,
nature where they are absolutely assured that they're right. Their vision
yeah,
or the opportunity or success of what they're doing is right. But in the mid and short term, they are sometimes it's paranoid. Other times it's just very assured that they're wrong and that they want to find all the different ways that they're wrong, and get the best people on board to kind of facilitate and add momentum to the business. And I think the two founders at Adore were great examples of that. Or are great examples of that. They had this unshakable belief that it was going to go places,
yeah,
even through, I mean, the thing is, I started Adore in 2018. That was 18 years in. So, I'm sure a long roller coaster ride to that point. And to say, sure, I was in a period of really high growth, really big
yeah,
dollar growth as well. But the percentage growth before I even stepped in, put a foot in the door, was, beyond that anyway. And also a lot of perseverance. So I think that the first thing is the business had an innate, unshakable belief in its opportunity, and that's infectious. And you add your own sort of how you see that, the truth of that. For me, I could see it, and probably a little bit too different to what they saw, but why I knew it was going to be huge and why it could be even bigger
yeah,
than what they'd already achieved. But it's important to have that kind of foundation.
yeah, yeah,
And then there was just the numbers as well. I'm kind of part art, part science. That sounds kind of, even when you talk about yourself in the third person, it's not great. But I enjoy both. I think art is more courageous, but sometimes it's hard to be brave.
yeah,
Um, and so the numbers, for me, are like an internal mental puzzle, which I really enjoy. And the numbers, at at most steps along the way in a door, were screaming out more. There's more. And so, managing our investment, presiding over some really huge growth periods, and taking some of those courageous steps, giving people in my team and seeing people in our team, the broader team, take on accountability and really run their own parts of the business, and
yeah,
being a coach to some of those areas. And there's just a lot of great experiences. To answer your original question, yeah, I think I did. I think I did because the two people that founded it were really confident, but
mm,
also I think because we were encouraged, and I took much joy in sort of defining my own vision for how big it could be and making it big in sort of slightly different areas. Some of the things we grew, and some of the things that I was able to achieve with some amazing team members, some of whom, many of whom are still there,
yeah, yeah,
and some of whom left along the way. Like, really cool, but also broaden the scope.
yeah,
The number one ranking podcast for quite a while. Launching a data team that was way ahead of its time, and still does amazing things, and always wanted to sort of break the mold. Some of the launches we did, I think global shades to this day is I'm really proud of. I'm proud of less that I did it, more that I was a part of it.
yeah,
And the sex category as well. Launching that, now it's kind of, I think, passe to have to be selling sex products as a retailer. But when it was launched, it was it was a cool thing to do. There
Yeah.
was plenty of those moments. I think if you can do stuff that makes commercial sense, has great value, as well as it has value to you and your team, uh, that's that. You got to celebrate those moments and drive
100%.
them.
Absolutely. And I know, we spoke about this when we caught up. Like, for me, I became more aware of your brand and the whole experience, certainly in COVID. I mean, I became obsessed with buying home fragrant candles. So it was constantly, oh, Adore Beauty, not spending my money on anything else. And that, getting a Tim Tam, chocolate Tim Tam in the past, I mean, that was always a surprise and delight. That always won me over. So good job on that.
Well, the Tim Tam was started by Kate for sure many,
Well,
many
she
years
was on
ago.
the
I
money
think it
now.
it varied over the years. There was a couple of times when maybe it was caramello koalas,
Yeah.
but the Tim Tam had more structure, so it stayed. And I think it's quite emblematic of the door. It's a little bit cheeky. Beauty can be really, really fancy and
Mm.
aspirational. A Tim Tam is kind of aspirational, but every day.
Yeah, 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 keeps you grounded. When you look back at your career, do you have any regrets, or is there anything that you sort of look back and go, you know what, I probably, if I was starting all over again, I'd change that, I'd do that differently. Is there anything there that you would?
Oh, look, it's hard to kind of pinpoint exact moments. I think there's a lot of moments where I took the step and I was brave. And if you're earlier on in your career watching or listening to this, then it's kind of placatory and very generic, but it's the same old piece of advice, which is say yes more than saying no, to those career opportunities that come along. Say yes to just getting more experience. Often, I mean, if you, of course, everyone wants to say yes to career opportunities, but will you say yes to taking out the garbage or the proverbial garbage? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like someone goes, "Oh, do you want to be part of this data experiment we're doing?" And you're not really into data, but it's going to help you understand data and analytics more. Say yes to that. If it's about AI and it's with the tech team, and so it's really not your bag, but they need some help, and this is an opportunity to understand it more deeply. Say yes to that. If it's something you're scared of, even though it is kind of in your remit, but it's something you've always said, I'm not really into that public speaking, speaking to investors, or on a stage. Say yes to that. If for no other reason than adrenaline's great for you,
yeah,
cortisol not so good, but adrenaline is great for you and it keeps you alive. So,
yeah.
uh, yeah.
And something else I want to add on to that. I mean, as a leader and as experienced as you are, I mean, I can imagine, I know for me personally, like I've had a lot of feedback over the years, and I actually have purposely gone out to ask for feedback because number one, I like it. I'm also really okay with getting not great feedback because I'm like, I just want to improve. And it's funny, I had somebody once say to me, "Oh, but you always want feedback, like," and it was almost they were quite surprised by that. So, have you been somebody who's, always taken the good, the bad, the ugly, the rough, the smooth, the lot over the years?
Yeah, no, I definitely, and if any of my team, past or present, listen to this, then they'll probably smile. I definitely ask for feedback. I definitely encourage people to give me feedback because I think you can't expect to give others feedback. You can't expect to push and demand more from people if you're not open to that yourself. I think I can be quite demanding as a leader. Sometimes I have a bad habit of sending emails that are 3 pages long with very detailed
Yeah.
feedback and long-winded explanations, and that's to kind of surface everything I'm thinking about. I
Mm,
think I've got better at that over the years, but the sort of the seesaw of that is that I need to expect that people will and can give me the same. So it's almost like if they're giving me that feedback, I know that I'm doing okay because
yeah.
I'm running a culture where that's okay. It seems crazy to me
Mm,
that there was ever a time in business where it wasn't.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you do have to as a leader know when they're hitting upon innate truths and that you should take action. And you should also know when you need to be confident and go, no,
Mm,
I hear what you're saying. That's valid point of view, but I'm going to continue
yeah.
on this path. So Yeah, I think that's always been really important to me. Same with failure as well. Anyone's had a job interview with me will know. I often will ask people, "Hey, tell me about a time when things didn't work out."
Yeah.
Before I ask that question, I will tell them about a time when things didn't work out for me. Because you need to be vulnerable in order to get vulnerability. And again, if you're pushing people really hard, you're saying, "Hey, try everything. Take risks, be innovative." When you throw a new car out there is a prototype, then sometimes the spoiler's going to fall off, or the engine isn't going to engage properly. Because it's new and they're trying new things. And so if you go every time a mistake happens, you go, bad, that's terrible, then no one will want to try anything. So you need to create this fertile environment where mistakes are almost celebrated, just not 7 times in a row.
Yeah.
That's not cause for celebration. But I definitely do. I love that. And sometimes I think I can't remember the exact social commentator. She's quite popular right now. But there can be overdoing. As a leader, you can't overshare. Too much vulnerability, I think, is probably indulgent. But usually the vulnerability that you're most reluctant to show is the ones that your team needs. The ones that you want to show, that doesn't feel so edgy, is the ones of the team that they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. When there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast, and we've got sort of two categories. We've got other similar, CMOs, GMs, etc., that are curious to know what other CMOs are up to. But we've also got, others that are very much that emerging marketer that, as I mentioned to you, look at people like yourself and other CMOs. They're aspirational and want to know, okay, well, how do I get to that top spot? And it's interesting. I was chatting to another CMO recently, and that person was saying that, nowadays, there's a little bit of frustration because a lot of people just want to focus on content or social media. And, he said, I've over my career, I've done sales, I've done brand, I've done this, like I've become a lot more broader and foundational. Is there like from my view, I just don't believe, there's one path for anyone. Like it just doesn't work like that. But, when we look ahead in the future, the role of the CMO, what advice would you give to these emerging marketers, like in terms of, broadening out your skill set? Is there anything there specifically you would say they need to be across or they need to be doing?
I've had reasonable success at kind of predicting outcomes. It's been something that's helped my career. And so if I had to predict outcomes, one of them is that the current kind of, I don't know, 40 or so different kinds of roles in marketing departments, 50, will compact, they'll aggregate.
Yeah.
And so there'll be less steps from the bottom to the top. And that horsepower will become relatively more valuable than experience. Not, and again, this change will happen over time, but all those things are some of going to be some features of the landscape. So I think if I had to go, what has worked for my career that I think will still endure, one is kind of square peg round hole. Like just because you're in email marketing, or just because you're a marketing manager, just because you're a general manager of marketing, or just because you're doing analytics, or just because you're in product. Essentially, we're here to grow businesses, which makes money, keeps us all in a job, which pays shareholders, pays investors, and keeps the company growing. So you need to be connected from the very beginning of your career as much as possible with how your role generates value.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to solve problems, don't try as much as you can not to solve them with just using your own paradigm. Oh, I'm an email marketer. Hey, we need to get more customers. We should do more email, or we should improve our response rate. What is, most of the people, just about all the people I've worked with over my career, really smart people. The more you go, hey, I'm going to just channel my smartness in this kind of avenue only. It's almost like you're choosing to reduce your IQ. Because you're only applying what you know in a set box. I would say, yeah, like up against AI, and that's probably a controversial say, but also thinking about that aggregation of roles, you need to think about how to solve problems agnostically. And I've done that a few times in my career. by creating new products or new
Yeah.
divisions, or new companies within companies, or advocating for massive increases to warehouse capacity, as opposed to advertising budget priority. And the mental challenge of that is really exciting,
Yeah.
but also it has more impact to growth if you think about what is the best tool in the shed rather than what is the tools that match what I know so far or what the area I work in. Has more impact to growth, so therefore you achieve your outcomes
Yeah.
that you need to get, and you grow faster, which then sort of accelerates your career. You're going to accelerate your career by accelerating business success, not necessarily earlier on maybe more your own area success, but it's always ultimately understanding how your role impacts the company you're in, and caring about impact too.
Yeah.
Like not for a second losing sight of, if you're in brand, then your success measure might be brand awareness increase, but care about how that is translating to commercial gain. Care about it. Like what time lapse is it on? How do I measure that? How
Yeah.
do I promote that? And how do I leverage that brand that I'm helping build in different ways across the business that realizes value as well?
Yeah. I think you bang on there as well. It's having that further, actual care, and really sort of digging deeper into it and asking some of those. I think being inquisitive, I find, I think there's, I guess to a degree with these more emerging marketers, I think, I was chatting to someone recently and she was saying, I feel like there's a lot of people out there just really petrified of failure. There's like a real sort of generation of that. And it's like, it's okay. You can fail, but be inquisitive. Like no question's a bad question, just, everyone's learning, right? None of us are perfect.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've met very few entrepreneurs that care about making mistakes, like a vast number of employees do. It doesn't hold them back. If they make a mistake, they'll be variable on how much they admit to it. Some will completely fess up, others won't. But
Yeah.
then, without a shade of a blush, they'll pick themselves up and throw themselves back at the wall. And I think that it's important to be like that.
Yeah.
It's important if you're sitting around going, who's a good person in our business? All the times I've done that across all the businesses I've been at, people that come up undoubtedly have an impact. So, going back to what we just talked about, the other part is culturally, are they, and this is the wrong word to use, but are they infectious?
Yeah.
Like, is their attitude infectious? Do they set a great example? Are they passionate about the business? Which almost adds validity to the business by itself. Are they telling the story of the business and writing it, and so that others are picking it up and going, oh my God, that's what we're about, we're about that guy or
Yeah.
that girl. Like
Yeah.
they are emblematic of what we're about, because that is a force multiplier. So, you can have all the impact you want, but the other part is that kind of cultural.
Yeah.
If you say fit, that kind of means as to a pass level. It's cultural kind of incitement, cultural aspiration, cultural example setting.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is kind of the magic fairy dust. I throughout all the companies I've seen, people carry with them. They're that helps your career.
Yeah, I think that's it as well. And I think once you've got that, you're so proud to be there when you're looking around at all these incredible people, aspirational people that, you're still learning off and you're proud to be associated with as well. I've had that personally in my career where I've had it when I've not had that, but I've had it when I have had that, and you really notice the difference there. Finally, just before we wrap things up, so what's your legacy going to be here, Dan? I mean, I'm sure you've got a couple more 20 years left ahead of you, maybe longer. Where do you see the sort of lasting impact and the real legacy? Like, I guess, where would you be, if it was all over tomorrow, where would you be sort of thinking, you know what, I'm really proud of myself for this? Or, yeah, what would you want people to say?
Yeah, look, hey, that's a tricky question. Oh my God, some people that know me are gonna laugh, but in my family there's doctors, and they're very humble doctors. They're GPs, but I was conscious from an early age that they're helping people every day. Families in the community I grew up in, and so it's always struck upon me that I'd like to do something that has lasting positive value, and I think that some of the companies I've worked with have definitely done that. I'd like to do more of that.
Yeah.
And I'd like to keep disrupting. I think most of the roles I've done have been about disrupting the status quo.
Yeah.
usually for the better. I think that beauty takes itself very seriously. Some of that is good because it's an art form and it's creative. Some of that leaves people feeling excluded, in an everyday way, And so I think that Adore was a great part of changing that. I think that, some of the other brands across my career have done their own disruption. And disruption for disruption's sake is just like being a vandal.
Yeah.
But if you're disrupting to create space or to welcome people in, or to change stuff for the better because too few are gaining and too little are not. I love that, and so I'd love to do more of that. I think there's lots of opportunity for that in the sort of immediate future.
Yeah.
There's lots of disruptors coming and already arrived in our market, and so there's going to be huge opportunities for that. And I'm excited to keep surfing.
Look, absolutely. I've got no doubt. Having met you a few times now, I've got no doubt you'll be leading the charge when it comes to disrupting. And yeah, I've got no doubt about that whatsoever. Well, look, Dan, thank you so much for your time. I feel like I could probably chat to you for another 3 hours easily and back and forth questions, but I really appreciate your time. And yeah, I think our listeners are there's going to be a lot of light bulb aha moments from this. So thank you so much.
Yes, thanks, Lucy. Really appreciate it. It's very kind of you. Love to be on the podcast.
Remember, the road to CMO isn't always linear. It's filled with challenges, decisions, and moments of transformation. Whether you're charting your course or navigating a career shift, the experiences, wisdom shared today, as with our guests, is invaluable. Thank you for joining us. Keep dreaming big, keep pushing boundaries, and remember that your journey towards becoming a CMO is as much about the destination as it is about the growth you experience along the way. Until next time, continue to innovate, evolve, and carve out your path to CMO.